Hello there, I'm Joey Hollywood, and I thought I'd share my thoughts on the 2019 film Glass, written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It took almost 20 years, but I finally got the sequel I've been waiting for. The bar was set kinda high with Unbreakable, and despite being super excited that I was finally getting this movie, I was a little worried considering M. Night's previous work. I am relieved to tell you that I completely disagree with many of the headlines concerning this movie, and I thought this was a pretty solid experience, in my opinion. I'm going to say right now it's not perfect or 100% what I wanted, but I think it's a good movie and a decent follow-up to Unbreakable and Split. I've said in previous videos that I think that Unbreakable is a superhero movie masquerading as a drama, and Split is a supervillain movie disguised as a horror flick. And when it comes to Glass, I'm going to say it seems like a straightforward superhero movie. However, not like a DC or Marvel Studios type thing, more like an adaptation of one of those black and white indie comics from the 90s. I really like a lot of the music in this movie, particularly the theme for Mr. Glass. It sounded like clockwork. I don't know, it's kind of fun. Split and Unbreakable have their own tone and visual style, and I would say the same for this movie as well. It can work very much as a standalone film, and unlike the previous two, color plays a bigger role in the visual style. It's a pretty good looking movie. Bruce Willis actually looked like he cared about the movie, so that's a refreshing change. James McAvoy was just as good, if not better, than he was in Split. And Samuel L. Jackson's performance in this is not quite as subtle as his in Unbreakable, but considering what has happened to this character between these two films, it makes sense. The best performance in this movie, I think, is from the psychiatrist played by Sarah Paulson. The way she plays off these three characters, it's just great. There is one particularly bad performance in this movie, and it kind of took me by surprise, because before the movie came out, I was really happy to hear that M. Night cast the same kid who played Joseph Dunn in Unbreakable to play the adult version of his character in Glass. But then I saw him in the movie, and he's kind of the worst actor in the whole thing.
I was pretty convinced that he was going to call me and tell me that they were hiring Chris Hemsworth to play my character, or The Rock or something.
I do have some minor issues with the movie, and I'll get into those right now. So this is the follow-up to Unbreakable, but I don't really feel like we spent enough time with the characters from that movie, particularly David Dunn. In fact, this movie feels more like a follow-up to Split than Unbreakable, which I guess is not really a fault of the movie. But man, after 19 years, I wanted a little bit more of those characters I loved. I've heard the original cut of Glass was 3 hours and 20 minutes long, and while I don't think it necessarily needed to be quite that long, I feel like the movie could have used an extra 30 minutes dedicated to Mr. Glass and the Overseer. There are some things that are revealed at the end that I believe could have done with a little bit more setup. I mean, it's kind of obvious where this movie's going to go once they get into the asylum, but it's just a lot of information all at once. And then after the climax, the movie just kind of sits there for a little bit before the end. You might recall in my Unbreakable video that I said that Mr. Glass's condition could have felt really silly if it wasn't for how it was presented in the movie. And well, this movie makes it feel kind of silly. There's a particularly bad effect in a flashback scene, and some of the stuff towards the end with how the scenes are shot, and particularly Foley, that makes his condition seem really silly. These are just minor complaints though. It didn't detract from my overall enjoyment of the movie, and in fact, after I left the theater, I wanted to go see it again. I know M. Night Shyamalan isn't too keen on director's cuts, but man, would I have loved to see that 3-hour version of this movie. I think I'm more or less satisfied with the end product. I wish there was one more David Dunn-centric movie between Unbreakable and Glass, but I'm just happy we got this movie at all. M. Night always said that he wanted this to be a trilogy, and I don't believe that Split was always meant to be the second part, considering it's an unused subplot from Unbreakable. And I can honestly say I think the way this movie ends was always the intention from the beginning. It just felt right, in my opinion. I did a podcast with my buddy Aficionados Chris where we talk about movies we're looking forward to in 2019, and I do gush about Unbreakable and talk about how much I'm looking forward to Glass. It would mean a lot to me if you would take the time to check that out if you haven't already watched it already. Thank you for watching. I'm Joey Hollywood. I'll see you next time, and remember, please be kind and rewind.